Hey guys, a video for the Buying a House in Japan playlist. We sometimes get messages from people asking us what's been going on at the old farmhouse and asking us to make more videos from the old farmhouse with what happened to the unskilled labourer. Basically, since the renovations have been finished, they were the most spectacular jobs because we could take a crappy old room, turn it into a nice room and makes an interesting before and after shot, and that was all a lot of fun. But since then, it's mostly maintenance and repairs. So we thought we'd show you this anyway. You might remember the left door there goes into a workshop, the right door there goes into a toilet area, and we noticed that over a period of a week or so, every day we're seeing water down here at the bottom of this wall. So obviously that's not a good thing, particularly in Japan where we get white ants and things. If you get wet areas like this, it tends to attract white ants, and then you get white ants in the walls and things. Other than that, of course, we're losing water, which is not environmentally sound, so we sort of suspected that it was underneath the slab somewhere, and because the slab for the rooms and the concrete outside are separate, we assumed that the water was coming up in between. So we sort of suspected that taking the sheeting off wouldn't really help us, but we had to do it because you never know, there could be a pipe there. There's no plans anywhere that show where the pipes were, so it sort of was the logical first step. But of course, once we took one sheet off and found it was rusted, then we had to take the other sheet off, and then we realized that the frame was a bit dodgy too. And then the other thing was that those sliding doors there haven't been sliding very well. They've obviously had a problem. But it's not possible to take those doors off and fix the rollers while that box is still there. So there's the rusty tin. So we took advantage of the fact that the sheeting was off to pull that frame off the wall a little bit further and allow us to get those sliding doors out, because it's sort of an opportunity. There's two doors there. There's the solid door, and behind that solid door there's a glass door, and the glass door we've never been able to move. So this was an opportunity to be able to get our hands on it. So just pull the frame off the wall a little bit there to give us access to the doors. You see the problem? That's why we can't normally take them off and fix them, because this thing's in the way. So now we can do it. So I'll pull this thing off. This happens all the time in these old houses, is you start off with one project and you end up with about 5. That's exactly what happened with this. So okay, one thing led to another. So then we check the rollers, have a look at the rollers. So these rollers had actually survived pretty well, but the problem was that the screws he'd used were a bit short, and the timber had got soft over the years from getting wet, and the little screws came loose, which means it was running on the screws there. So no wonder it wasn't rolling really well. One screw had fallen out, another one was just holding on. So that's an easy fix, that one. And the rest of the door's in pretty good condition, so that was a pretty easy fix. And here's that glass door. Have a look at that one. We can see why we couldn't move that. Look at that, rusted solid. And then it was stuck inside that box. We couldn't actually get our fingers on it. So interestingly, you guys might remember we threw away 10,000 kilos, 10 tons of rubbish, but we also kept a lot of things that we found that we thought might be useful, including all these rollers. So out of that bunch of rollers there, 2 of them are looking pretty good, aren't they? So we can use them, and they're the right size too. So we're just taking the little screws out of that solid door and just replacing them with a lot longer screws. We sort of tidied those little fittings up a little bit, made the hole a little bit neater, and then put these big screws in. Little things like that we tend to do by hand, because if you use a battery drill to screw in something like that, you don't have the feel. Battery drills can be pretty ruthless, can't they? So we tend to do jobs like that by hand, so you can feel it going in. That way you sort of know if it's getting a good grip or not, or if there's something in there stopping it, or if it's too soft. That's usually the problem with a job like that. It's usually too soft. Yep, that got a pretty good grip, so pretty happy with that. So we've got to do a good job of all this, because once this is all put back in place, you can't get to it again without pulling all those sheets off. And when you pull those sheets off, you can't refit them really. You've got to throw them away because they're all full of holes and all dodgy then. Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. That fat bastard. You can see the unskilled labourer has been spending way too much time at Denny's on the dessert menu. 105 kilo worth of unskilled labourer there, dear oh dear. So there's the glass door. That's an amazing thing because that's been hidden away there for a very long time, hasn't seen the light of day. So the frame's all dodgy. The glass is really old and thin and dangerous, of course, because it was obviously well before safety glass. So very thin, loose in the frame, thin, old, dangerous glass. So the first thing to do was to fix the frame around the door. So cleaned it up, put some glue into the joins, and finished it off with some screws just to keep it together. Because again, we don't want that frame coming loose once we start using that door, because we can't get to it. So sealed it all up. How's the old roller? Look at that. No wonder it wouldn't move. Have a look at that. What a shocker. And there's the new one ready to go in. So I just cleaned that hole up a bit. Cleaned it up a little bit, tightened it up, put the new rollers on, broke out some paint, painted it up. Got out of hand this job. Now just remember, the job is fixing a water leak, right? So brown silicone around the edges. That glass was so loose, we were expecting one of those sheets to fall out any time, so it was really good to get some silicone around those edges. Two things. One is just to stop the glass falling out, and the other one is they rattle, because you can imagine they're loose fitting and all that glass rattles around in the wind. And some of you might remember from the main house, we had to silicone all the windows for the same reason, because you get a bit of wind and the old houses rattle, the glass rattles in the panes. So I had to go at the frame now, because the frame was all a bit loose and dodgy. So again, we need to make sure that's going to be adequate if we're going to put it back together. So made up some new bits of frame. Some of the stuff that was a bit dodgy, copied it, made some new bits. Safety shoes, see the safety shoes there? So okay, here's the water. It's really starting to come out now. And then we noticed one night we're standing here looking at this job going, this is getting out of hand, and we noticed that we could hear dripping in the well. Now that's unusual, because usually we don't get dripping in the well unless it's been raining, and it hadn't been raining for a long time, or a week or so. So we had to assume that that water was coming from wherever the leak was coming from, and the well's actually at the back of the room. So that means we've got water coming out the front of the room and the back of the room. So we had to look out the back window, and sure enough, look at this. So now we've got water coming out the back of the room and the front of the room. And see that pipe there that's got a T-junction on it? And again, no plans. There's no plans anywhere to tell us what's going on. But from this, we've got to assume that the leak is actually happening under that room. And that room is sitting on a slab of concrete that's almost a foot thick. So there was really only one solution. We couldn't really go digging up all the concrete. Wouldn't be very practical, of course. So the solution was to take a T off that passing pipe there and run a new pipe. Now we're only guessing, there's no plans anywhere to tell us where all the pipes run, and next to this room is a toilet that's obviously got pipe running in there with the water, but we suspected that was coming from a different direction. So this pipe that goes underneath this floor only leads to an outside tap, and there's two outside taps that are in different places. So we assume, okay, if we cut this pipe, we'll lose that outside tap, but we've still got another one out there. All we've got to do is run another pipe from that T. So you cut the T off and put a new pipe up the wall and bring that through, and that will give us a tap back in the workshop again, which is important. And we just lose one of the outside taps, which we figured wouldn't really matter, because we've got two outside, so we don't really need two. So that seemed like a practical solution. So there we are, we've got a tap back in the workshop again. We've cut the pipe under the floor out of the picture, so that's not going to be a problem anymore. But when we turn the water back on, the second tap, which is that one over there, doesn't work either, which means we've just lost both our outside taps. And of course that's like 15-20 meters away under about a foot of concrete. So just insane. No idea why they ran it that direction. There's another direction that they could have run to that tap, and we assumed they'd gone the other way, but they'd run these two outside taps together off this room. So they've gone under this room and all the way across underneath that, and then laid a foot of concrete. And the pipe is only 22 millimeter plastic pipe, which is just way too thin and too weak to be under a piece of concrete like that. And with all the bamboo in the yard, obviously the bamboo roots have got to it, and that's probably what's caused the problem. It's come right through. You can see bamboo in the back there. The roots have come through under the floor. We know that because where the old dude's feet are there, in that corner of the concrete, there's some little roots there, and at the back of the room there's some roots there as well around the pipe. So that's what's happened. The bamboo roots have got under the floor, damaged the pipe, and that one pipe feeds both the outside taps. You can see one on the right there of the old dude, one tap there, and there's another one behind him 20 meters away. So okay, the job just got more complicated. Now we need another outside tap, right? One thing leads to another. So practical solution, we need it to be near that toilet too. See, on the right hand side of the old dude there's a toilet in there, and people come out of there and often wash their hands outside. There is actually a little tap above the toilet. We've shown you that sort of system before in Japan, but people often like to use the outside tap, and we also use it to connect to the hose to wash the car and things like that as well. So it needs to be right here around this area. So the practical solution was to run a pipe through that room and connect it outside there. But of course we need to have the frame in place and solid before we connect up that pipe, because we don't want to be moving that pipe after it's connected and joined. So we've got to get the frame right, the boxing right, make sure it's all nice and secure, strengthen it up, make sure the doors are still sliding well. Really spent some time on that box, making that box solid, because it was really dodgy. So made that solid, then fixed the frame. Lots of long screws, putting it all in place. Keep checking the doors, because as the frame was moving, we wanted to make sure it was still sliding. So okay, that looks pretty good. And then we run the pipe back. So now we've got to cut off. This was painful, because now we've got to run a pipe back through the room. So the best way to do it, rather than dig up the concrete, just run it along the wall of the workshop. And it means that work we'd already done to provide a tap to this room now has to be cut off, right? Because we've got to put a T-junction on it. So okay, well let's change the plan, and we'll put the tap for the room in a different place. Get rid of that thing. Sorry, knocked the camera off the table. So cut that off, don't need that anymore. Put a cap on it in case we ever need to use it again. And then we'll put a T over there against that wall, and we'll put the tap there, because it's sort of, then we can move the basin over there too, which is in a bad place. And then that work that we'd already done, we've got to cut that off and go again. Those of you who haven't worked with this plastic before, plastic and plumber's glue, it's really serious stuff. And once you put it on both surfaces and push the pieces together, and once it sets, it really sets. And it sets pretty fast. You've only got a few seconds. Once you push it together, it'll set, and you can't move it then. And all the angles and everything have to be right. It's really tricky stuff. I mean, straight out connections like that are pretty straightforward, but once you start getting tricky, so we're going to go around the corner here now, 90-degree turn, and then we're going to go out through the door and connect with the outside pipe. And the final connection of that is tricky, because if you mess it up, the only solution is to cut it all off and do it again. So there's our nice new fitting there on the wall with the tap on it. So we're cutting the pipe on the outside, the nice new pipe off the outside, and we'll cut the new one off on the inside. Fortunately, that pipe, because it is cheap and dodgy, is cheap and dodgy. So all those parts are pretty cheap. So we cut that plastic pipe off, pull it out. We've got a new connection there we've already made. Glue it all up. And this final connection is a tricky one, because all the angles have to be right. You don't want the pipe all pressured up, all sort of at funny angles and things where it's stressing itself. It's all got to be comfortable. So I put the tap on there, bang, okay, so that's all done. Of course we can't put the outside tap on until we put the wall back up, the sheeting back up. So cut up the sheeting, work out where the tap's going to be, put a hole in the sheet. Need 2 of them. Again, wearing the safety shoes there. Got to use safety shoes if you're using an electric saw, haven't you? Okay, so sheet it. Bang, 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 bang. And then paint it. The old spray gun, we painted the whole house with that spray gun, and it's sort of had it. It's not real clean inside anymore. We've tried to keep it clean, but it's just been used to death. So the spray gun's a bit dodgy, and the compressor's underpowered. So the end result was this is a bit of a long process. What we're actually doing there, see the nails? Those of you who haven't worked with tin before and those big nails, the heads, it's really important that you get paint around the heads of those nails, because that's usually where the rust appears first. So we've found from experience that you've got to really make sure you get all the paint in around those nail heads to stop the rust getting in there. So that's why we're doing that first. But that was a slow process. It still gives a better finish than using a paintbrush. It puts it on better than using a paintbrush, but we just had to be patient. You'll notice too, lots of overspray there. We do a lot of this brown and white combination, and it's the easiest way. You can tape it all up, mask it all up, but it just takes forever. So we found that it's actually faster and ends up with a better result if you just overspray, and then after you've finished painting and overspraying with the spray gun, then you go around with the paintbrush and then just paint over the bits that you oversprayed. It ends up with a better result. You just got to wait till the next day, of course, till the brown's dry, and then you go around and do that. And that way there's no bits that aren't painted. Everything's painted. Everything's either brown or white. If you mask, you usually end up with little bits in the middle where there's no real paint, or it's hard to get the right, and the masking takes forever. A lot of faffing around. This is much quicker. Touching up that white was like a 30-minute job, so that's much quicker than masking. And then we got a little fresh bit of white there too. See, looks better, doesn't it? Ta-da! And we'll get our tap. The tap's in a bit of a high-profile spot, but it sort of has to be, because people look for it. They come out of the toilet there and they look for it. So the tap really had to be there. That was really the best place for it. Finally, the problem solved. So, and the upside of it was that now we have a glass door to the workshop, because in winter when it's -10 or something and it's really cold and snowy, if you go in the workshop and close that main door, it gets really dark in there, of course. So it is nice to have glass door now, so that we can go in there in winter or on a rainy day and just use the glass door, and that allows the natural light to come in, which makes it a much nicer room. Because as it was in winter before, if you close that main door, it gets a bit dingy. We've got fluoros in there, put new lights in there as well. But so now we're sort of inspired a bit now to do something with this room, because it's practical. All the useful stuff's in there. It's all tight. We know where everything is, but the room sort of is a bit sort of sad looking, isn't it? So we're thinking this might be the next project. So thinking about that. But in the meantime, the water leak's fixed, and we've got a new tap outside, and we've got a glass door on the workshop, so we can sit in there with nice natural light coming in on rainy days or in winter. So that was sort of a bit of a bonus. Came from that huge job, and that's what working on the old house is like. One thing leads to another, and 2 weeks later you fixed the little problem. More videos coming soon.